morning. This is Dr. Maul coming to you live this morning from Family 360. Family 360, and it's a privilege to be with you today. And I thank God for the opportunity to be with you. Um, it's a little chilly, a little cold, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be here today. So I am grateful. How are you? I hope you are grateful, and I hope you're doing well. Today we want to continue our revised teaching on bad girls of the Bible, and today we'll be dealing with Potiphar's wife, part two. Potiphar's wife, part two. Before we get started, I think I may have messed up back there turning this thing on, but I don't know how to go back. So we'll just do it with this. Um, what we want to do today is look at Family 360. What do we do here? Well, Family 360, we offer individual, marriage, and family counseling to children and adults. Our goal is to be able to reach as many um, individuals and adults as possible with this integrative Bible approach, um, dealing with life challenges of life, social skills, life skills, marriage, family, individual growth and success. Mental health. Oh, yeah, we can't forget about that. So, we offer workshops, seminars, and training in anger management, sexual abuse, domestic violence, depression, anything having to do with relationships and mental health. If I can't do it, guess what? I got associates who can do it. So, you never have to worry. We are located in Conyers, Georgia, 2012 Eastview Parkway in Conyers, Georgia. And we are willing to work with you. We have available openings for new clients. Our phone number is 770-679-0586. That's 770-679-0586. You can write me, call me at that number, or write me at DMAUL. That's DMAUL at family360center.com. That's DMAUL at family360center.com, and it's MAUL. Our website is family360center.com. Family360center.com. And you can see the services that we offer. And we're always changing them, working on them, trying to improve them, trying to respond to what I see as the needs of our community, and trying to be as current as possible. That means we got to change some things. The word of God doesn't change, but we have to change the way we deliver the word in order to reach the lost and those who are saved but having a heck of a time, not only staying saved, but walking this Christian walk. So we want to help guide you through this in some practical ways. And so this is a practical ministry, a practical teaching of the word. We don't use them high words, which I try not to. We try to be as very grounded and very basic as we can. So it is good to see you this morning. Again, if you have any questions, you can write me at DMAUL at family360center.com, or you can call my office at 770-679-0586. So we've been talking about, and by the way, if you have not sent us a love gift, Family 360, we need your help, financial help and support. You can drop your gift in the mail, or you can make a gift via our website. You go on the website, you'll see a donate button. You can make a donation there, or you can drop your gift in the mail to Family 360 Center, 2012 2012 Eastview. That's one word, EASTVIEW, Eastview Parkway, Suite 400, Conyers, Georgia 30013. That's 30013. We are in the process of expanding this agency, expanding this work, reaching out to multiple communities in the Northeast section of Georgia. We need your help, we need your support, because especially, as we are focusing on African Americans, Latinos, Asians, these are minority groups who seldom really use mental health. There's a distrust of mental health among minorities. So we want to see if we can break down some of those barriers and provide some interventions before it's too late. Our our people are suffering big time. And in this election season, we just had the results. It's not going to get any better. We are already seeing some of the marks and the indications of hate, violence, misogyny, discrimination, and it's not going to get any better. So you can pray all you want. It's not going to get any better. All these things are pointing up to the Lord's return. The Bible prophesied these things. So if you're in the Word, these things are going to happen. And when they happen, don't pull your hair out. Don't shave your hair off like me. I did it for other reasons. But understand that everything must culminate in the return of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so if these things don't happen, then that won't happen either. Okay? So we've been talking about Mrs. Potiphar, Potiphar's wife. She's the wife of Pharaoh's right-hand man, one of Pharaoh's right-hand men. Pharaoh's, the head of Pharaoh's bodyguard. And we've been talking about the fact that when we started this series last week, we looked at her status. Bored, young. I believe she was young, attractive, because in those days, men did not have ugly women as wives. They did not have old women as their number one wives. She was young and probably a slave that was caught, captured in battle. And Potiphar made her his wife. That was a custom of those days. You kill the men, but you take the women. You may kill some of the children too, but you try and save some of them. So she was married to Potiphar. We don't know how long she was married to Potiphar, but she was bored. She got bored. There wasn't much for her to do during those days. She didn't have a job to go to. I don't know if she had children. The Bible doesn't give us that. But if she did have children, she had tons of maids to raise the children, take care of the children, and to see to the house, see that the house was clean, kept up, looking good, and all that stuff. I want you guys to get a better look. See, I'm here, still looking good. So Mrs. Potiphar was in a place of boredom, and here comes the young Jewish boy, white boy, by the way. Some of us, we like the other skin color. Young Jewish, maybe in his late teens, white boy, looking rugged, handsome, robust, muscles. Remember, Joseph was a shepherd, muscles, fighting off beasts and all kind of animals trying to steal his sheep. So he was muscular. He was probably tall, reddish in color, and strapping. He stood out among the crowd. And maybe he was the only white boy at that time, so he stood out. And so he was fresh meat, fresh bait for Mrs. Potiphar. And so she began to scheme a way of ending her boredom with sex. Isn't that what many of us do when we are bored? we escape into three things: alcohol, no, drugs, woman slash sex, or glory. Three things. When men fall, when men, and I'm talking about strong men, mighty men, powerful men fall, they usually fall for one of these three things. You look at history, you look at the Bible, you will see these things: drugs, women, and glory. We love the fame, we love the glory. The ego gets to our heads. Um, so in this situation, Mrs. Potiphar is using one of these methods to end her boredom. And so here she is with, as I said, fresh meat, fresh bait, and she's a bad girl. So she's not beating around the bush. She is not mincing her words. She realized that her husband was not there often, because we read earlier in Genesis 39:6, it said, "So he, Potiphar, left in Joseph's care everything he had. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate." Now, that's a bad situation. Bad for who? Mrs. Potiphar. Because her husband didn't care about her. The man only cared about his food. Oh my goodness. Food, food, food. It gets us in a lot of trouble. And in this situation, it's going to create a lot of problems. You see, because in Genesis 43, it tells us, because Egyptians could not eat with Hebrews, for that was detestable to Egyptians. Here is the discrimination, here is the hatred, and here is the bigotry. So all Potiphar worried about was his food. Some of us men are the same way. We don't care about the sex. We don't care about the wife. We don't care about the romance. We just want to make sure when we walk in the house that our food is ready, that our meal is ready. And so this beefy bodybuilder, he had to have his regular rations, when he came in from his uh, hard work as Pharaoh's bodyguard. So here comes Joseph. Mrs. Potiphar is not cooking her husband's meals because, she had plenty of maids for that. So Joseph became her immediate attention. And as I said, Joseph was handsome. He was good for the eyes. Look at Genesis 39, verse 6. He was good for the eyes. You see, I may get in trouble for saying this, but a lot of women get in trouble because of the physical appearance of a man. See, guys like you, maybe me, we are not attractive to certain women. So we don't have the abs, we don't have the build, maybe we don't have the looks, maybe we are overweight, old. Um, so young girls, middle-aged women, older, they look past us. But the young boys, remember now, Mrs. Potiphar invented the word cougar. It wasn't any of these television shows that came up with the terminology of the older woman going after the younger men. Mrs. Potiphar started that way back when, maybe 3,500 years ago. So we see here that at her age, I'm sure she was maybe a little bit older than Joseph, but she was wise to the world. She had an itch that she needed scratching, and Joseph, this handsome guy, was the one to scratch her itch. And so Joseph is described in Genesis 39, verse 6, physical. and he was lauded. Remember, his mother was Rachel, so he had some good genes. His father was Jacob, and Rachel was a very, very beautiful woman. So you can imagine Joseph was a beefcake. he had the posture, the figure of a movie star. He looked good. He had what the young women were looking for. He was a stud, to put it that way. He had the look that most women are looking for today, which later on ended up in trouble anyhow, because men like those, they're not going to stay with one woman. You see, because they believe they're the greatest thing, greatest gift to women, so they got to spread themselves around, and that's why some women go crazy. Some even kill some of these guys. He was young, attractive, in shape, in form. He was bright. He was a quick learner. Why do you think Potiphar made him head of his house? He was eager to serve. He was mannerly. He had the trappings of someone who was well bred. So here is Joseph. He had not yet been spoiled by the city. He was fresh off the fields, fresh out of the well, as a matter of fact, and into this corrupt luxury of the life in Egypt. Vast city. Black people all over the place. I'm sure there were whites also, but Egypt was a predominantly black society. Don't believe those white guys who want to tell you that the Egyptians were what they call them, the Hellenists, and they were white. No, Egypt was black. All right, the pharaohs were black. Look at some of these movies. Turn them off. Turn them off. So, but Mrs. Potiphar didn't realize one thing, that Joseph had a faith, a rock solid faith in the God of Israel. And that was going to be her undoing. He was Hebrew to the core, um, and his faith kept him during some very difficult times. Joseph looked good in his outfit. Remember now, in those days, the men, you see, you think men dress skimpy today? The men dress very, very skimpy. Maybe a piece of linen across the shoulder, a loin cloth across the waist, and that was it. Whereas the women were dressed up, more covered. The men were not. So you can imagine the muscles this woman saw, the strong physique of this Hebrew boy. Joseph looked good to her. And I believe Joseph knew he looked good. And maybe Joseph flirted with her a little bit, gave her a little bit of attention, because he had all the looks of his mother. Okay? And so he was lavished upon by his mother and his father. He was a spoiled brat to a certain degree. And so he loved the attention. He loved the attention of the ladies. He loved the attention of his father. And he became his father's favorite. So we see that Joseph is a young man, handsome, a slave. But his slavery was in circumstances. He was not a slave in his mind, because Joseph knew he had been anointed, he had been called, he had been appointed, and he knew his day was going to come when he was going to realize his dreams, when his dreams would become manifest, they would become a reality in his life. So he had confidence in God, despite the fact he was going through some trials and heartaches. But that is common to every one of us. When you're called, let me tell you something. When you're called, anointed and appointed, the devil will come after you hard. Don't let that discourage you. Be strong, be confident, be faithful, as we will see here in Joseph. So here he is, as a slave, as the head of the house. If Mrs. Potiphar called, Joseph had to run. to her. He had to respond to her call. Genesis 39:7 says, and after a while, we don't know how long. Bible says after. We don't know how long this a while was. But after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, I believe this woman, the first day she saw Joseph, she said, thank you, Lord, my problem is solved. She was thanking her Hebrew gods because she saw Joseph as the answer to her boredom. She was going to have an affair with Joseph. She had already made it up in her mind. Maybe Pharaoh was not paying her any attention. Pharaoh was neglecting his husbandly duties. If this woman was much younger than he was, which is most likely, she probably had a higher sex drive than he did. He came home from work tired, exhausted. He eats his meal and he goes to sleep, get his rest ready for the next day's challenge. Maybe they had sex maybe once a month. Who knows? Who knows how often? But this woman was starving for affection. And I don't know if she talked to Pharaoh about it because Pharaoh had his pick of women. You know, Pharaoh didn't just have his wife for sex, but he had all those maids in his house, maybe in Pharaoh's house, wherever he went, he had his pick. That's the way it was in those days. So after a while, how long? How long do you think that after a while was? Hmm? I don't know. But the Bible tells us she was tired maybe of taking baths several times a day. Maybe she was tired of decorating her room. I don't know if she had a hobby of collecting coins from different realms her husband traveled to. But I guarantee you, she was ready for Joseph. Was she looking the other way? Was she fighting temptation? Was she baking bread, hanging around the clay ovens during that time? I doubt it. But the bottom line is, Mrs. Potiphar, oh, there goes my camera. Just hang in there. It will come back on. She made quite an entrance, eye-popping entrance wherever she went. She said to Joseph after a while, she didn't beat around the bush. She knew what she wanted. She said, come to bed with me. She got right down to the nitty-gritty. This is where the rubber hit the road with Mrs. Potiphar. She didn't beat around the bush. She said to Joseph, in no uncertain terms, come to bed with me. She was not subtle about it. She was not coy about it. As the wife of a powerful woman, she knew how to choose her words. She is accustomed to getting her way, to get what she wanted. And what she wanted right now, right here and now, was Joseph, her husband's handsome slave. And as a foreigner, Joseph was, I believe to her, an exotic specimen. As a foreigner and as a Hebrew woman, Joseph as a foreigner was forbidden to her. It was forbidden fruit. He was forbidden fruit. It was like taboo. And you know, many of us, we like to break all these taboos. That's why so many of us are so extreme in our sexual practices. They were complete opposites. She was Egyptian, maybe the older woman. He was the younger. She was married. He was single. She was Egyptian. He was Hebrew. She had no morals. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, there are some people like us who do not have any morals. She worshiped the flesh, and he was a worshiper of the one and only true God. Listen, opposites attract. You don't want someone to be exactly like you to feel as if you can have a great relationship. The electricity will flow with when opposites attract. And in this situation, it was flown in one direction from Mrs. Potiphar to Joseph. In verse 8 of Genesis 39, the Bible says, but he refused. What a temptation. And I believe at this time Joseph was still a virgin. You know, that word is dying out today, but there's still some virgins around, past the age of 12, past the age of 14, past the age of 16, past the age of 20. When you get into your 20s, there's still some virgins around. Maybe in their 30s, they're still waiting for that one Mr. Right to come along. So Joseph refused. Joseph did not misunderstand what this woman was saying to him. Imagine Mrs. Potiphar. Imagine how she was dressed. I'm sure by that time she had cleared the house out. She probably gave everybody a day off, sent them to their huts, to their houses, to their villages, because she had a plan. Joseph came and Joseph looked around. Where's everybody? Joseph walked in the house to inquire of Mrs. Potiphar, where's everybody? And once Joseph saw her, I believe Joseph said to himself, uh-oh. She was ready for Joseph. She had taken her shower or her bath. I don't think they had shower in those days. She had taken her bath and she was ready for Joseph. She was dressed, I believe, in the flimsiest of nightgown, if she was dressed at all, because she wanted to entice Joseph. She did not want Joseph to say no. So she was ready to give the goods away. She displayed her goods to Joseph and taken preacher's license. And so we can imagine her laying back on her bed or on her sofa, face all painted up. We can imagine this woman, her chin held high, blinking at Joseph, winking at Joseph, gesturing to Joseph, come here. It leaves a lot to our imagination. But we only know that he refused to go to bed with her, period. Not only did Joseph refuse to sleep with her, to have sex with Mrs. Potiphar, but Joseph explained why, which goes back to the point I said earlier. I believe Joseph knew that this was coming. I believe this woman, this was not the first time that she had made an attempt to seduce Joseph. So this time Joseph had a response. Verse 9, Joseph said, with me in charge, Joseph knew his position. He told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? So Joseph had a ready made explanation for refusing. And when the opportunity came, when the situation came, he fell back on his faith and his basic morals. Maybe other slaves had fallen for Mrs. Potiphar before Joseph. Maybe other slaves had given in to her advances, her threats, because she was in a position of dominance. Those people could lose their jobs or lose their lives. And I guarantee you that not many would have stood up to her and resisted her until Joseph came along. There is no proof here that Joseph was sincerely tested by her offer at all. Because, as I said, Joseph already knew that this was coming. Though she was beautiful, though she was used to having maybe many young lovers, though she had other men falling at her feet, though she had all this power, Joseph said no. I wonder how old she was, because maybe she was going through a midlife crisis. Maybe she found herself at a place where she needed something to boost her self-confidence, her self-esteem. Remember, in those days, adultery was not a major problem because the Egyptians were not Christians, they were idol worshippers. So the term adultery and fornication were not concerns to them. You see, and only when we come to Hebrew tradition and Hebrew laws, we see where adultery becomes so preeminent. And so for Joseph, he saw this as a violation, not of Hebrew law, not of Potiphar so much, but more so of God. What did he say? He said, how then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Who waited for Joseph? Here is a man, young boy, with all the hormones, raging hormones of a teenager, yet he was able to corral, he was able to control, he was able to say no to a bad situation. It was not going to help him. If he had slept with her, sooner or later, Potiphar would have found out, and maybe then he would have been killed. So Joseph said no, though she pressed the point. Just imagine you're Mrs. Potiphar. Here is a slave saying no to you. Here is a slave rejecting you. Here is a slave saying to you, I don't want to sleep with you. Regardless of your power, regardless of your perfumes, regardless of your sexuality, regardless of your pressure, I'm not going to bow to you. Verse 10 of Genesis 39 says, and though she spoke to Joseph day after day, she stepped up her game. The Bible said she spoke to Joseph day after day, and he continued to refuse. He refused to go to her bed with her or even be with her. He didn't want to be in her company, period. How persistent are you? This woman was bad, but she was persistent. She wanted what she wanted, and she was persistent. How persistent are you in getting that which you want? How committed are you to realizing your dreams, your goals? Do you let little things, small things deter you, detract you from your dream or your goal? Do you just give in because of a little bit of pressure? You know, she met Joseph, and I don't believe she anticipated the resistance from Joseph she got. Remember now, she was a woman of power, woman of clout. She was Potiphar's wife. So anything she wanted, she got. Anything. Men, women, money, whatever. Farms and lands and cattle, she got it. Until she ran against this brick called Joseph. But she didn't stop. She kept pressing him. Now, during all this time, I wonder if Potiphar was around. And I wonder if she spoke with Potiphar about what was going on. Not at the end. I'm not saying she needed to have spoken to him at the end when she finally gave up. But did she share with Potiphar, her husband, what was going on, her attraction, her seduction, attempted seduction of Joseph? I wonder if Potiphar approached her sexually, what her response was. Was she making love to Potiphar? Oh, I'm going to get in trouble. Or was she fantasizing making love to Joseph? You see, because she was used to Potiphar, now she wanted Joseph. So this is how the fantasy aspect comes into this situation. When she was talking to her husband Potiphar, was she talking to Joseph? Was Potiphar around, or was he out and one of his long away assignments with Pharaoh? But whether or not Potiphar was around, this woman continued to persist. And look at how deceptive she was. Because if Potiphar was around, and if she had loved him so much, she would have told him. It is interesting because women are very clever when they are having affairs. We men, when we are having affairs, we mess up. We give it up all the time. We men don't know how to lie. We don't know how to connive and scheme. On the other hand, a woman could be having an affair under your nose and you would know as her husband because she's that good at plotting, planning, scheming, manipulating. So it is with Mrs. Potiphar. Right under the nose of her husband, she was attempting to have an affair right in the house. Right in the house. There's nothing like an angry woman when she finds out that her boyfriend or her husband has brought other women to the house, slept in their bed, their marriage bed. Nothing like an angry. Some woman could kill at that time. She's going to burn the bed. A lot of women have done so. Burn the bed, the sheets, and everything. Demand, if she stays in the marriage, she's demanding a new bed, maybe even a new house. But here it is, Mrs. Potiphar, with her cleverness, with her audacity, is attempting to have an affair in her husband's house. And maybe she had done it before in the past and had gotten away with it. Pharaoh was none the wiser. I don't think there were swingers. I'm sure she knew Pharaoh was out there doing his thing because that was the culture of the time. And I'm sure she realized that she could do her thing without telling Potiphar. Because I'm sure even though the maids and the maid servants knew the kind of woman she was, they dare not mention anything to Potiphar. Potiphar didn't have time to talk to his servants anyhow. She did not stop. The Bible says day after day, she was pressuring this boy. She was pressuring this young man. She was morally corrupt. She was persistent to a fault because she wanted what she wanted. She did not lower her expectations. She did not change her expectations. She did not take her eyes off Joseph. And maybe somebody is saying, well, maybe Joseph could have just given in and get rid of the pressure and the stress. But if you give in once, you're gonna have to give in twice, especially if the sex is good. If Joseph had given him in once to Mrs. Potiphar, and if the sex was good, or even the novelty of her sleeping with a white Hebrew boy, I'm sure she would have kept coming back for more and more. So you see the wisdom of Joseph and the wisdom of God and the Holy Spirit. Joseph said, no, I'm not going to compromise. Listen, where was Potiphar doing all of this? This woman is having the run of this house. She's harassing the head master, the head servant, the man in charge of the house. Where is Potiphar? And I guarantee you, she did not do it when Potiphar was around. She did not do it for Potiphar to hear. She knew exactly what she was doing. Her husband is away, maybe on away on a mission, won't come back for weeks, months, and sometimes if they're laying a siege someplace, years. So she knew exactly what she was doing. Her timing was meticulous. Her timing was astounding because she knew her husband's comings and goings. And I don't believe she had any fear of being caught by Pharaoh. And maybe if Pharaoh had paid more attention to her, maybe if Pharaoh had listened, maybe if Pharaoh had taken her out on some social, excursions, maybe she would not be so hot to trot. Who knows whether or not she was getting any sex from Pharaoh? Because they said Pharaoh had his choices. But you see, not Pharaoh, I mean Potiphar. Who knows? But listen, one of the worst things that we men and women can do is act ignorant of what's going on in our homes. It could be your aunt, it could be your niece, it could be your best friend. Ladies, be aware of the other women in your home. You got a husband, be aware. It could be your daughter. Be aware of the interactions in your home between your husband and the other females. Be aware of strange men visiting cousins or uncles you bring to your home. Men, be aware of the other men living in your home. Be aware of that. I was always uncomfortable in having men in my home who I did not know very well. And even then, there were times when I was uncomfortable. Thank God, to my understanding and knowledge, nothing has happened. But the stories are so frequently revealed, frequently spoken of. How the husband or the wife get caught up with someone who was staying at their house, a visitor or friend, or the wife's best friend. Watch out for those best friends, ladies. Watch out how your husband and that best friend play with each other, talk with each other. Don't be an ignoramus. Don't be ignorant. Don't be so arrogant to think that, oh, my husband will never do that. I'm fighting with the sniffles on the cold, so you're gonna have to excuse me. Be careful. Be mindful that your best friend could be after your husband. How many of you have had those stories? How many of you have lost your boyfriend, your husband, to your best friend, to a cousin? One of my favorite shows is Cheaters. If you ever get time to watch that show Cheaters, and one of the episodes, I don't get to watch it as often as I would like, but one of the last episodes I saw was the wife's niece was dating her husband. The wife's niece now was dating this woman's husband behind her back. The husband was having an affair with his wife's niece. It's a better way to put it. And cheaters caught them, and man, it was something. I love the humor when these men and women are caught in the act. The craziness, the violence, the cussing, the pain, the anxiety. Listen, Mrs. Potiphar was good at what she was doing. She stands accused of sinning against God. Here we go again. Camera is off. I think I missed something back there. Yeah, I missed clicking on. I think that blue. I know, Anne, I know you're listening, so it's my fault today. Correct it tomorrow, and I don't know how to go back and fix it. She had no moral interest in pleasing God. And that is one of the reasons we Christians need to be careful where we go, who we associate with, the company we keep, because if they have no morals, if they don't care about our Christian values and virtues, they're gonna tempt us to high heavens. And they're gonna feel proud if they're able to get us to succumb and give in and take that whiff, take that spliff, take that drink, sleep with that individual, or steal this, or commit things that are not Christians that you should not have done. That's why Paul challenged us that we must love the brethren. John 1, 2, 3 challenge us to love the brethren, fellowship with the brethren. Be careful of the company you keep, because like Mrs. Potiphar, listen, many of our company folks could care little about God, the one and only true God, and our Christian values and morals. And they will do everything about us. They will tempt us. They will set us up to get us to sin. Mrs. Potiphar was bad to the bone. She had no desire, no regard for Joseph's God or his morals. And you know what? I believe she found Joseph's values, Joseph's morals to be very, very challenging to her. I mean, she was turned on. She was ready to fight with Joseph. She was ready to bring him down, and she did everything in her power, everything in her strength to bring Joseph down, to cause him to fall. Everything that she could. We don't know her history, we don't know her background, but this woman was strong willed. Here is another strong willed woman we're going to be seeing as we talk about bad girls of the Bible. Just about with all the bad girls of the Bible, sex played such a prominent role. So you will hear me talking about their sex lives and the role sex plays. Mrs. Potiphar's power was her sex and her sexuality. And we will see this with the bad girls of the Bible. They knew what they had during those days. And many of them could only survive by using their sexuality, by selling sex. And I believe Jesus understood this so clearly in the New Testament. That's why he said to the woman caught in adultery, neither do I condemn you. How would they have lived? How would they have survived? Some of us from our modern day soapbox are preaching so hard and condemning these people so much. We don't show the compassion that Jesus showed to them. Genesis 39:11 says, one day he, Joseph, went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. Red flags. Joseph, in his skimpy outfit, looking good, looking handsome, an attractive young man, went into the house. He looked around. Nobody was in the house. Was there some type of earthquake going on that caused them to run out? I doubt it. Was the house blowing up that caused them to evacuate? Was there some type of odious smell in the house? Aroma? I doubt it. Oh, Mrs. Potiphar is stepping up her game. She believes she's going to win this day. So she evacuated the house of all the men servants, of all the women servants, of all the children, all the slaves were nowhere to be found in that house. This is what you call a setup. She was setting Joseph up big time. Oh, red flags. And the good thing about Joseph, Joseph noticed. Some of us would have gone on our merry way, do our chores, whatever we had to do. And maybe sometime afterward, we would have noticed an empty house. Who was responsible for all these slaves being out of the house? Joseph said, I didn't ask them to leave. None of the servants. Joseph believed something was up. And so, turn on the music. I don't know what song she was listening to, but turn on the music. Here she comes out of the bedroom. Maybe this time she stepped up her game. No clothes. Sheer see-through linen, if she had anything on. Maybe she was doing her belly dancing. Nice makeup. She had her best makeup on. Hair looking great. Here she comes. Maybe she's singing along with the song, or maybe she's just humming to herself. Listen, she's not going to take no today. No, sirree, she's not going to take no. Verse 12 said, she caught Joseph. She caught him by his cloak, by that little thing he had, darling. She caught him by his cloak and said, come to bed with me, in that forceful manner of a voice. Today, she had it up to here with Joseph telling her no. She had it up to here with Joseph resisting her. She had put all the strings out that she could to get this boy to come to bed with him. And today was the day. If she didn't have him today, she's going to stop the game and she's going to throw him in prison. Because I believe she knew the moment she told Potiphar what was going on, that Joseph would be banished from the house. So today was the day. Today was D-Day. and she was willing to lay her hand. She attempted to rape this boy. Ah, some of you say, and especially some of you older men. I heard some of you older men say, well, a woman cannot rape a man. Stop it. Stop it. I'm making a note here to myself. Attempted rape. Forcefully. She lay her hand on him and said, come to bed with me. She wanted it now. Her energy had been built up. Her fantasy must be fulfilled. The reality must become a reality for her today, not tomorrow. Today. This was the day. The Bible says she caught him by his cloak and said, come to bed with me. But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. That's verse 12. Joseph continued to resist, continued to say no to her. And at this very juncture, she put her hands on him by force, attempting to force him to her bed to sleep with her. But Joseph had to make a break for it. Force or no force, Joseph left his cloak. Maybe it was getting a little wintry, but he left his cloak in her hands and he ran out of the house. He left the evidence. The very evidence Mrs. Potiphar was going to use against him, but at the same time, it was the very evidence that caused Joseph to escape with his life. Let me tell you something. Don't allow that cloak thing to fool you. Other translations said it was his garment or an undergarment, a long shirt tied at the hips. He was in the house, so he could not be in a coat. It was dry, it was hot. No coats are required in Egypt during that time. So the question you need to ask, why was Joseph so close to her that she could grab his undergarments or his garments or his cloak or whatever? Why? Did she sneak upon him? I doubt it. I believe because of the pressure coming from her, Joseph was quite aware of her presence. So this is Dr. Maul. Time is up for today. I promise I'll fix this camera thing tomorrow. So until tomorrow, I challenge you to have a great day, a safe day, and we will pick up from here tomorrow in dealing with Mrs. Potiphar. Hopefully we should wrap her up in a couple more days, sometime this week. But God bless you. So until next time, you have a safe day. Bye-bye.